Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed by all members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. No member is to put in danger or to accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion that may harm his brother or sister because Allah is love. All members must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all members must obey the laws of the government because by being a Moorish American, you are part and parcel of this government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5. This organization of the Moorish Science Temple of America is not to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Very important 2 sections. Live the life accordingly and obey hereby. You can't say that, oh, well, I don't participate like in the voting process. I'm not going to vote, of course. Then you're not part and parcel then. Then you're not a part of the process. You got to be a part of the process in order to make a change in the process because the prophet said to what? Take your seats amongst the affairs of men. Flawed or not. The prophet already knows it's flawed. That's why he put this in place. Act 6. With thus, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed that they may know that they are a part and parcel of this said government and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were what? Given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasting until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained the prophet Noble Drew Ali to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabit the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. All members must promptly attend their meetings, and all members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you're entitled to the name of a faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband, take care of your children, and look after the duties of your household. Children sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity, because out of our Sunday schools come the guidance of the nation. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure in love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, through the guidance of his Father God Allah. Peace. At this time, I'm going to step aside. Thank you for bearing with my opening. I am Sheikh Shatik El, and at this time, I'm going to bring up Brother Omari Bey. Islam?
Islam.
Islam, family. First I rise, giving perfect praises to the great architect of the universe, Father God Allah, giving honors to his prophet, Noble Drew Ali, giving honors to the forerunner of the movement, Marcus Messiah Garvey, and give honors to all Moors in attendance, and to give honors to Moors online. Islam?
Islam.
We're going to start our Quran questions for Moorish children, known as the 101s, also known as the question and building period, which if you want to make a statement or if you want to build upon something within the 101s, this is the time to do so by the raising of the hand. 1, who made you?
Allah.
2, who is Allah?
Allah is the Father of the universe.
3, can we see him?
No.
4, where's the nearest place we can meet him?
In the heart.
5, who is Noble Drew Ali?
He is Allah's prophet.
6, what is a prophet?
A prophet is the thought of Allah manifested in flesh.
7, what is the duty of a prophet?
To save the nations from the wrath of Allah.
8, who is Noble Drew Ali?
He's a prophet of Allah.
The founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America.
9, what year was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded?
1913 AD.
10. Where?
Newark, New Jersey.
11. Where was Noble Ali born?
In the state of North Carolina, 1886.
12. What was his nationality?
Moorish American.
13. What is your nationality?
Moorish American.
14. Why are we Moorish Americans?
Because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America.
15. For what purpose was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded?
For uplifting of fallen humanity.
16. How did the prophet begin to uplift the Moorish American?
By teaching them to be themselves.
17. What is our religion?
Islamism.
18. Is that a new or is that an old time religion?
Old time religion.
19. What kind of flag is the Moorish?
It is a red flag with a 5-pointed green star in the center.
20. What do those 5 points represent?
Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
21. How old is our flag?
It is over 50,000 years old.
22. Which is our holy day?
Friday.
23. Why?
Because Friday is the day on which man was formed in flesh, and it was on Friday when he departed out of flesh.
24. Who is Jesus?
He was a prophet of Allah.
25. Where was he born?
In Bethlehem of Judah, in the house of David.
26. Who were his father and mother?
Joseph and Mary.
27. Were you given brief the line genealogy through which Jesus came?
Some of the great fathers through which Jesus came are Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph by Mary.
28. Why did Allah send Jesus to this earth?
To save the Israelites from the iron hand oppression of the pale-skinned nations of Europe, who were governing a portion of Palestine at that time.
29. How long has that been?
About 2,000 years ago.
30. What was the nationality of Ruth?
Ruth was a Moabitess.
31. What is the modern name for Moabites?
Moroccans.
32. Where's the Moroccan Empire?
Northwest Mexico.
What's the modern name for a Mexican?
Africa.
Islam. 1 second, Mose. I just want to add on. Because as always, as I'm going through the 101, something else just hit me. So I'm realizing, because I always build from the question 1, where it says, who made you? Allah, who is Allah? And you realize the prophet is really walking step by step, explaining to us who we are, right? So I said a couple weeks ago that a prophet or a thought, so we did, what was a thought? A thought was a well thought out plan, a well created plan is a thought. A well created plan is a thought, right? So if a prophet is a thought of Allah manifested in the flesh, then I go to the science of the flag. So what kind of the flag is the Moorish? Is a red flag with a 5-point green star in the center. What do the 5 points represent? Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So it's giving us the characteristics of our spirituality, right? And before we were even formed. And then it says, which is our holy day. And then why? Because Friday is the day on which man was formed in the flesh. And it was on a Friday that man departed out of flesh and ascended back to Father God Allah, right? Now that's the same reason. Who is Noble Ali? He's Allah's prophet. A prophet is a thought of Allah manifested in the flesh. So also showing how meant the whole science of why Allah had even created the science of manifestation through the prophet. Islam, by bringing him into a fleshly thing, and also explaining not only why did he come in a fleshly form, but how did we get here through the flesh. So in order for us to follow someone, we must understand where he come from and how did he get here. Because if we follow him and he's our prophet, then he must, right? He said, Jesus said, what I do, all men must do. So if I'm following you, and so I must watch the things, what this says, a leader who leaves the footsteps of the trail behind. So I must watch the things and watch the direction that you went so I can follow. So if I don't know how you was even brought here to be created in the physical, then you don't know self. So a part of, so I'm tying is who is Noble Ali is Allah's prophet. What is a prophet? A prophet is a thought of Allah manifested in the flesh. That's going right back into 22 and 23. Why? Because Friday is the day on which man was formed in the flesh. So if the prophet, you see how the prophet was formed from the spirits and he fell into the flesh to guide us. So it's also giving us the same science on how we got here, on how we fell into the flesh on a Friday, and how man was developed on a Friday. Islam. Yes.
Islam, and then if you get there, that's why the prophet wrote the Circle 7 according to scriptures, because this is what the people understood at that time. So if you go back into the scriptures, into Revelations, is that on the sixth day God rests after creating man. The sixth day, out of all the things He created on the sixth day. So Friday would be the sixth day. And then the seventh day would be the Sabbath. So I'm saying that to say a lot of people use the term weekend. There's no such thing as weekend. The week never ends.
True. Islam.
It's 7 days.
Islam. So I was on 33. What's the modern name for a Mexican?
Africa.
34. What's the title given to our ruler in Morocco?
Sultan.
35. Where do we get the name Jesus?
From the east.
36. What does the name Jesus mean?
Jesus means justice.
You see how how Allah put the prophet as justice in the form of a person, in the form of a human. So Jesus means justice, and that's how Allah had to bring justice to this world, but can only do it by bringing a physical form here to us, which is the prophet. That's why I say understand that Jesus means justice, and the prophet was a perfect plan created to rebalance justice. Islam. That's part of the reason why Allah brought the prophet here, is part of the reason why the prophet is bringing us here. Islam. 36. What does the name Jesus mean?
Jesus means justice.
37. Did the angel give to the child that was called Jesus a holy name?
Yes, but it cannot be used by those who are slaves to sin.
38. What is an angel?
An angel is the Lord of Allah manifested in the human flesh.
39. What are angels used for?
To carry messages to the four corners of the world, to all nations.
40. What is our prophet to us?
He is an angel of Allah who was sent to bring us the everlasting gospel of Allah.
41. What is the everlasting gospel?
It is a saving power that comes from Allah through our ancient fathers.
52. What is the covenant of the great God Allah?
Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the earth land, which the Lord thy God Allah has given thee.
Islam. 43. At what age did Jesus begin to teach?
At the age of 12.
44. Where did he teach?
In Africa and Europe.
45. How long did he teach?
18 years.
46. What did Jesus say that would make you free?
Truth.
47. What is truth?
Truth is art.
48. What is art?
Art is Allah.
49. Can truth change?
Truth cannot change or pass away.
50. What other names do we give truth?
Holy breath.
51. What have you to say about holy breath?
All we can say is it is great, it is good, it was, it is, and evermore to be. Amen.
52. At what place on earth was a physical part of man formed?
In the Garden of Eden.
53. Where's the Garden of Eden?
In the land of Canaan, in the city of Mecca.
54. What's the modern name for the Garden of Eden?
Mecca.
55. What's the name of the first physical man?
His name cannot be used only by the executive rulers of the AC of the MST of A.
56. What are the words of AC of the MST of A?
Adam Chamber of the Most High Temple of America, third heaven.
57. Who were Adam and Eve?
They are the mothers and fathers of the human family, Asiatics and Muslims.
58. Where did they go?
They went to Asia.
59. What is the modern name given to the children?
Asiatics.
60. Who is guarding the holy city of Mecca today to keep unbelievers away?
Angels.
61. What is the modern name for those angels?
Asiatics.
62. What is the shade of their skin?
Olive.
63. Are the Moorish American any relation to those angels?
Yes, we all have the same father and mother.
64. Give 5 names that are given to the descendants of Adam and Eve.
Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and beast.
65. What is the devil sometimes called?
The lower self.
66. How many selves are there?
2.
67. Name them.
Higher self and lower self.
68. What people represent the higher self?
The angels who protect the holy city of Mecca.
69. What people represent the lower self?
Those who were cast out of the holy city and those who accept their teachings.
70. What is the higher self?
The higher self is the mother of virtues and harmonies of life that breeds justice, mercy, love, and right.
Islam. 71. Can the higher self pass away?
No,
72. Why?
because it is Allah and man.
73. What does the lower self breed?
Hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything else.
74. What did the higher self say to the lower self at one time when he met him?
Where are you going, Satan?
75. What was the answer that the lower self gave to the higher self?
I am going to and fro the earth, seeking whom I may devour.
Islam. 76. Has he finished his task of devouring?
Yes.
78. What were the last words that Jesus uttered?
It is finished.
I'm sorry, 77. What was his time declared out?
When he nailed Jesus to the cross.
78. What were the last words that Jesus uttered?
It is finished.
79. What did he have reference to?
He had reference to the end of Satan.
80. Did Jesus say he would return to conquer him?
Yes.
81. What is the name of the first person into whom Jesus was first reincarnated?
Prophet Muhammad, the conqueror.
82. Was Satan to be bound then?
Satan was to be bound in parts.
83. When was the head of Satan taken?
83 in time.
84. By whom?
By Muhammad.
85. Name some of the marks that were put upon the Moors of the Northwest by the European nations of 1774.
Negro, black, colored, and Ethiopian.
86. Negro.
Negro, a name given to a river in West Africa by Moors because it contains black water.
87. What is meant by the word black?
Black, according to science, means death.
88. What does the word colored mean?
Colored means anything that is painted, stained, varnished, or dyed.
89. What does Ethiopia mean?
Ethiopia means something divided.
90. Can a man be Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian?
No,
91. Why?
because man is made in the image and after the likeness of God Allah.
92. What title does Satan give himself?
God.
93. Will you define the word white?
White means purity, purity means God, and God means ruler of the land.
94. To whom do we refer at times being the great God?
Allah.
95. Is the devil made in the image and the likeness of Allah?
No, he is the shadow of our lower self and passed away.
96. Who is the devil?
Elohim.
97. Who is Elohim?
Elohim is the seven creative spirits that created everything that ever was, is, and ever more to be.
98. What is Elohim sometimes called?
The seven eyes of Allah.
99. How many days are in a circle?
7 days.
100. How many days are in a creation?
7 days.
101. According to science, how many days are in a year?
7 days.
Islam. That was beautiful, family. That was great harmony. I was lovely. It's coming up.
No. Yeah.
You ready? Islam. All right. With that being said, family, next I bring up the Grand Sheikh of the Temple, Lord Nature, El Bey. Islam.
Islam.
Ready to receive.
Islam, Moorish Americans. First I rise, giving perfect praise to Allah, honors to our holy and divine prophet, giving honors to all angels, giving honors to all Moorish Americans, all living Moorish Americans, I want to say, Islam, all modern day Moorish Americans, Islam, all modern day Moors, giving honors to all our children, our mothers, sisters, daughters, etc. Islam.
Islam.
Yes, brother, you got your hand up.
Islam arise and give praise to the great Father of the universe, Allah, forerunner, Prophet, Noble Drew Ali, Grand Sheikh, Sheikhs, all honorable members in attendance, everything pertaining to Islam. I just want to say that the one-on-ones, this lesson this morning so far, Brother Amar, thank you for the one-on-ones, because I read chapter 1 prior to coming to class this morning, and the one-on-one
To the meeting,
not
not class.
coming to the meeting this morning, and just want to say it really resonated this morning after reading that chapter 1, because a lot of the one-on-ones is after reading that, it relates. It comes directly out of that chapter 1, talking about our foes and the foes that we have to go to build our strength. Islam.
And it's add on to that. This I was just talking about how in the 101s, when we understand through Allah, how Allah created a prophet, and the reason of creating a prophet to bring justice, and then the prophet teaching us who we are for us to come in the later days and continue to bring justice. That's also the same thing like when you go into the 101s. Then now you understand and you see how we crawl and then we walk and then we run and then we flying. So as you're going through the 101s, then you go in chapter 1, it's going to just naturally start to vibrate with you. Then you're going to go chapter 2 and it's going to vibrate with you. So that's Islam gratitude. I appreciate that.
Islam. Islam. And before we even go deeper into another lesson, what we call the 101s is the Quran questions for Moorish children, but it's also questions and answers. So always, if someone have any questions related to the questionnaire, feel free to raise your hand. This is the time allotted to this portion of our meeting for questions and answers. So once we get into a lesson, then that kind of like waives the time for questions and answers. So if you do have questions and answers, like you said, is designed, gratitude. It's designed to go home and study on our own time. That's what it's for. So when you arrive at certain dilemmas or questions at home, you write it down and you bring it to the meeting. So when we have in Quran questions and answers, that's the time for questions. That's why it's called questions and answers. So it's not just designed to read them and give the answer, but if you have a question pertaining to them, that's the time for that as well. It's time to exercise. That's why it says the teacher must confirm himself to the questionary, which is what we refer to as this. And then let every member exercise their 5 senses, those who are able to do so. Because out from your Sunday school comes the guidance of the nation. Islam. So does anyone have any questions or have anything they want to expound on related to what we just went over for starters? Islam. Islam. So we have been pivoting off of the Quran on our Friday night demonstrations on Holy Night. And I just want to bring something to our attention before we get into chapter 1. I want to go into the divine warning for the nations. So I want to break down the title before we get started. So it's referred to as the divine warning by the prophet. My question is, by what prophet, just for starters?
Prophet Noble Ali.
Islam. For the nations.
Islam.
What nation is he talking about?
All nations.
All nations. Islam. Is anybody going to say anything different? All right, Islam. Just have to ask. There's different demonstrations out here. So let me clarify something. For example, a divine warning. A divine warning. Divine means what?
Spiritual.
Let's acknowledge ourselves. Brother Mark first.
Islam. Divine, a spiritual connection or a spiritual alignment.
Islam. Brother Shati. A divine warning is really it's really a prophetic decree to all nations. That all
No, just the word divine. I want to break it down first.
prophetic.
All right, Islam. Islam, Brother Omar.
Pertaining to God or the Creator.
Pertaining to God or Creator. Islam.
From God.
Islam. So I'm going to go with that definition. Divine means of or pertaining to God. Now, man's idealist is God, so there's going to be different perceptions of God. But just like Brother Mark was saying, the spiritual connections on high, whatever your idea of the supreme being is, all right, or the supreme force. Doesn't have to be a being at all. Islam. So we're just breaking this down because I want to share a measure with us that I want us to look at. So a divine means pertaining to God. Warning. Warning means what? By hands. This is simple. Islam. Mark.
Warning, giving, like, say, a notice.
All right.
You're giving a notice, or you're making a proclamation.
All right.
Of some sort.
So a divine notice or divine proclamation. All right. So Islam, Sister Zara.
All right, just give honors to the great God of the universe, Allah. I give honor to the four runners of this movement. I give honor to the Grand Sheik, Nature El Bey, Grand Sheikas, Nika El Bey, all the Moors, all in attendance, and those who
Islam.
understand what I'm trying
Yes,
to
I
say.
understand.
I just wanted to expound on
Yes.
what was that? The warning part?
Warning, correct.
It's something once it's been decreed that you should take heed in that, because that's what, like, somebody, if you know something and you can save somebody and you give them that information, it's up to them to take heed in that. So the blood ain't on your hand because I told you. So don't come running back to me after something happened and I told you and I warned you. And then you get a divine warning and you don't take heed in, then you up a creek with no path.
Yeah, absolutely. Islam, very well put. Islam, very well illustrated. Islam universal.
On the rise, give praises to Allah, give honors to Noble Jali, give honors to Marcus Garvey, give honors to Grand Sheik, and all that.
Islam, honors to you.
Warning also is like awareness.
To be aware.
Yeah, to be aware. Divine also to me is purity, cleanness, innocence.
All right, Islam, Sheik is Nika.
As he prays Islam, all of the God of the universe, honest to Noble God Prophet, Jali, give honors to Grand Sheik, Lord, Noble
Islam.
Give honors to the members, give honors to our posterity, give honors for honors to
Islam, honors to you.
Well, that I just forgot. Okay, so warning is to be warned. I had a certain word that I was going to use. It's like having your five senses that you're not in tune with. So a warning is something that tells you, or is information of a predetermined danger.
Islam.
So a warning is something that is to take place that you're not aware of.
Absolutely. Islam.
That's warning.
Islam. And thank you for that, because that's where this is actually going, because there's different, universal said awareness, Sister Zara says, if I told you, told is tell, that's verbally, because you can warn people in different ways is where I'm going with this. And warning is not always verbalized or not always told in words. So give you an example, and then it's different awarenesses that's going on, but I'm gonna give you an example. A headache is a warning. And a headache is a divine warning. You know, because we said that a divine warning is a warning that comes from God or comes from on high. Well, guess what? Man and God is one. You know, so if you got a headache and you man, you got to understand you are God. And if you don't understand why your body is giving you a warning, then you're going to miss, again, you still miss the message. You know, so again, knowing thyself also, you know, is related to where we're going with this. All right? Islam. So I just want to break down the concept and the importance of this. Now, being that we just realized that a divine warning means a warning by God, it says by the prophet for the nations. And the prophet, according to our questionnaire, is what? All right. So a prophet is an angel of Allah who was sent to bring us the everlasting gospel of Allah. So what is the everlasting gospel?
Saving power that comes from Allah.
The saving power that comes from Allah. So that's back to what Sister Zara was just saying. All right. So now, if we're dealing with the everlasting gospel of Allah, that's what we call that's the good news. In Moore's lingo, that's what we call the good news or gospel. Islam. So what we going now, let's go back a little bit. So a prophet is an angel of Allah, and an angel could be physical. An angel can also be non-physical. An angel can also be an angle, or what we call an angle of light. It could be light spheres. It could be different entities or different deities. All right. So when I asked the question earlier, I said it says a divine warning by the prophet. I said, what prophet? And we said Noble Drew Ali. That's cool, but that's not it. So I want to get us to think. Remember, the prophet said, if I can get you to think, you can save yourself. So that's what this is geared towards. We're gonna think. We're gonna exercise the capacity of thinking, reasoning, willing. We call this what? The actions of the soul. Right. So this is what we're going to utilize. So when I said what prophet, and we said Prophet Noble Drew Ali, including but not limited to, meaning that this warning is not just by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Because if a prophet is an angel of Allah, and the Prophet Noble Drew Ali told us that we had a few true and divine prophets. So this message or this warning that we're about to get into is not limited to the writing of Prophet Noble Drew Ali that was manifested in 1886. You understand what I'm saying? This is a divine warning, which means that this warning has been around for ages. So again, we don't want to get caught up into the concept of Noble Drew Ali did this, Noble Drew Ali did that, or Noble Drew Ali wrote this. Because it's Prophet Noble Drew Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, but he was a vehicle. The Quran tells us that Allah speaks to man through man. So Prophet Noble Drew Ali was manifested in the human flesh to demonstrate this message and to give us this message and to teach us certain things. But Allah used him as a messenger, as a vehicle directly for the Asiatics in North America. But like he said himself, that his message he brings is universal and is not different from the messages from the past. They all pivot the same message. They just might be retranslated and brought to us in another language, the language that we speak. But the lessons themselves are not modern day lessons. They're not modern day warnings. When we Brother Shatik mentioned prophecy. So when we're dealing with prophecy, that's not just one prophet. Whenever you're dealing with that term prophecy, that's not limited to one man. Remember, the everlasting gospel is a cycle of information. It's a cycle of information. And that's how we got to look at this. Because if we don't really look at it this way and deal with the science of it, we don't teach it that way. And if we don't teach it that way, when others hear it, or others get the lesson, they're not getting the lesson in the direct or the purest form. So then it doesn't resonate with them the same exact way. So they take it and give it a little, give it their minute perception of how they took it when you gave it to them. And then that's what develops whoever they're going to be. Like the prophet began to teach the Moorish Americans to be themselves. He taught them about themselves. He taught them, he taught them certain things. And that's how we are supposed to start off teaching Moorish Americans about themselves, not about other people. That's a different way of teaching. If we listen to our teachers, they're teaching us mainly about other people. When the concept should be teaching us about ourselves. Because once you know self, you'll know other people. You can't know other people unless you know self. So the ancients of the ancients taught to know thyself, not know him, not to know her or not to know them. The focus point is not them. The focus point is us first. Islam. Universal, you had your hand up?
Yes.
Islam.
You had mentioned to add on. You had mentioned language. And,
Yes, sir.
As I was studying the Quran, it's a language in there. Mm-hmm. And people study language as in they want to learn Spanish, they want to learn Greek, they want to learn different languages. But as the language in the Quran, mm-hmm. it to me I call it divine prepared, and divinely prepared.
True.
Because as you read it, and we come to the temple and obtain the guidance from Grand Sheikh, we understand the language.
Correct.
So Islam.
Islam. That's a good perception as well. Mm-hmm. But the Quran tells us that he fitted us with language to do what? To improve thy society. So language, we're not just taught language just to communicate or just so that we can be able to tell you what we're thinking about or give you some type of instruction, but the language was to improve thy society. So that's key, because the language that we were given deliberately was not to improve thy society. It was to debase our society. So we were stripped from our native language. And we are even what is called, they call it English. Mm-hmm. But again, once we start thinking again, like the prophet says, then we can understand that if my language is called English, that's what they call it. And then the name of the land should be England. Mm-hmm. But because the name of this land is not England, then why are we speaking a language from another land? That's the first clue that something's out of order. Wow. And again, that's how we should think. And I know once you have a conversation with people, they agree with you. But really, those things we ignore and buffer over is the problem. Like, that is a major problem. And people just look at it like, oh, that was then. Why are you worried about that now? That has nothing to do with now. It has a lot to do with now, because you can't be free as long as you're under these conditions. And there's other layers of conditions that's based off that we're not talking about. That's all related to that, which means that somebody else still have their control over what you speak. That's right. If they gave you the language, they also gave you the definitions to the language. which means that you're still not talking your own language. It means you're not defining your own words. That means you don't know what true thought is because somebody gave you another thought. Even the names we call ourselves, like we proclaim our nationality and we correct our names. So we know what those names means after we did the research. But prior to that, we're calling ourselves names and allowing other people to define us, and we don't even know what those names is. If I call myself Jack, or say somebody name me Jack, and I go all through my life calling myself Jack, well, what does Jack mean? Define Jack. Who defined their straw mans? And we can get brilliant and say, well, my straw man name means this. It's not yours. And is that the vibration that you really give off? Somebody define it. Are you living up to their expectations of what that means? There's a lot to go with that. Islam, Brother Nawiyah.
Rising in the name of Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, honor to his noble prophet, Drew Ali, honor to all members in attendance, honor to everything for the ticket to Islam. You mentioned the language thing again. Mm-hmm. Something came to mind about how even other territories, like in Africa and mm-hmm. the Middle East or wherever, even though they also got colonized, mm-hmm. a lot of them still kept their language.
Correct.
So even though like you have a country, say Nigeria or Senegal or all these different places, they still kept their native tongues in those territories. So even though you have Nigeria, they will have like the Igbo people, they will call their land Igbo land, mm-hmm. because that's the language they speak there. Or mm-hmm. you go to Hausa, they call it Hausa territory, or Wolof, mm-hmm. or any native tongue that they kept for themselves. Mm-hmm. Even though the main European language is spoken collectively, they still maintain their personal language. And that land is called by that language.
True.
Islam.
Yes, sir.
If you don't mind, you mentioned the word English. Mm-hmm. Actually, you're right. That's not our native language, because we spoke many languages. That's why the prophet said the most important languages to learn is Latin, correct, or Spanish. Yeah, I want to make the right quote. But absolutely. we did speak Latin, and English is Latin. So the actual English got the word English from the term English, which is Latin.
And it's a dialect.
It's a dialect.
Yes, of other languages.
English, right.
Absolutely. Islam. Islam. So I'm going to move forward into this divine warning. Islam. I'm going to read it pretty quickly, so I don't want to draw too much time on it, but I want to use this to build up to another thought. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. And it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and principles that allude to slavery. Islam, that's also part of the language. Names and principles that delude to slavery. I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and go back to the state of minds of their forefathers, divine and national principles, that they will be law-abiders and receive their divine rights as citizens according to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. They are to claim their own free national name and religion. There is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government. That's a highlight. Like if you have in your own books, you should highlight certain things because those are focus points. When we highlight something, that means we pay close attention to them and we go back and investigate what we highlighted at a later time. So that's one of the things that we highlight. There is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moorish divine national movement. Now listen to this. If you believe or know that Prophet Noble Drew Ali is a true and divine prophet, then you recognize his words, his statements, his prophecies as a direct message from God. I repeat, if you have faith that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali is real, then that means whatever he said to you, you don't look at it as the prophet said it, you look at it as God said it. That's the connection. You can't debate. If you believe in the prophet or any true and divine prophet as being real, then you don't disconnect what they say from what God say. That is words from on high. That's how you have to view that. If not, then you're really a hypocrite. And with those who know, who understand, will view us as hypocrites if we don't believe in what our prophets say. And this is not just our prophet or Prophet Noble Drew. Any national people and through their religious connection, if they don't take their prophet serious in their words, then they're hypocrites. Has nothing to do with ours. I'm just using ours for an example because I'm speaking to us. But this is the dynamics of a prophet and how a prophet is used in law. I'm showing you the political connection now to a prophet and how other politicians and lawmakers and executors of the law, how they are taught to treat and deal with matters of prophecy and religion. Religion is at the high seat of government, but is talked about and viewed as a elementary or minute perspective of government, but it is at the high seat of government. And we have to know that and prove it because Drew Ali said you ought to proclaim your free national name and religion to be recognized by the government. But now one has to make that connection and prove that claim on what does religion have to do with my nationality and what does it have to do with government? Until we get to that point where we can walk into a tribunal and show them that connection, then what we just saying is that we don't know what we're talking about. Because the very highest claim is the one we can't prove. I'm talking about just collectively, where they use that right back at us. Because we going in there saying we Moors and this is our documents, and then they come right back to you and say, oh, this is religious. We don't acknowledge religion. Oh, that's your religion. That's your belief. We don't deal with that here. And then we walk away and we discourage because we really don't know the claim. This is serious. Yes, this is very serious because we are being taught and misled by people who tell us that religion don't have nothing to do with this. By people who are trying to separate religion from law. And you can't do that. And our own people will mislead us if we don't know. Now, I'm not faulting them. I'm faulting us if we adopt that. This is the reason why we had these meetings to make you aware of the connection. It's up to you to make the connection. But you know, it's no one else's fault on if you can't prove this or not because it was brought to your attention. You just, we pick and choose what we want to read, what we want to deal with, and it's all good. But at the end, each tongue must confess its own. So it doesn't matter what such and such said or what such and such is doing. It matters you right then and there and what you can prove or what you can't prove. That's what that means. Each tongue must confess its own. So you can't even say, well, Prophet Noble Drew Ali said this, or it's in his book. That's fine if you want to use it as a reference, but at the end of the day, it still comes to, can you prove that? How can you make that retroactive with customary law, common law, constitutional law, or even statute law? They're going to know what's your claim. How can you prove that? If you can't prove, then that's just a theory. And that don't hold no, theory itself don't hold weight in law. So you can't come from a theosophical perspective that this was in my religious text. That's not going to hold weight. Sheikah Nika.
It's we're asking praises for Allah. Honest to God, one prophet, no journalist, honest to do, honest to self. We've always, religion was the first law. And I think we get caught up in the names that we attribute to the religion, but we've always practiced religion. We just always went by different names. But as a people, we've always, it's the practice, not the name. And we've always had the practice when it was a natural thing, just like breathing. We had no name for it. It was just a natural thing. And so we've always...
Natural law.
It was natural law, God's law from the beginning. And then the corruption came about with the languages and the different, segregations and the separations. And then, the ego and all those things come about, the races and the battle, the wars of the nations and all those things. But religion has always been the law.
Islam, thank you. And Drew Ali's perspective of that, he says we start serving carnal customs and merely ideas of man. That's what occurred. That's basically what you're saying, just in other words. Islam, and we're still doing that to a degree by still listening to this person, that person, and not reading the literature and investigating and dissecting the science of what was given to us. Because we can, when the prophet declared the nation, he held up these items, right? And others as well. But this is what is considered religion or religious to our people. And then when we start talking about classification of law, then they put this down and then they start going to the bookshelf looking for law books. And that's the debasement. That's the problem. Where is nothing wrong with cross-referencing that. I'm pointing over here because this is where the law bookshelf is at. But this is really the law. This is natural law first. This is common law. Remember, this came before the modern day law books. This came before canons law. This came before statutory law. This came before constitutional law. Am I right? Yes. So let's prove it. He said the reason why these lessons have not been known is because what?
Muslims, India, Egypt, and Palestine kept it away from the outside world.
Kept them back from the outside. And what is the outside world?
The Western Hemisphere.
The West, Islam. So these lessons are in other lands, other nations, other parts of the world, right? And they were kept back from this part of the world for many ages. We broke this down prior. When we say age is reference to 2,000 years. So this has been around way before any of this stuff on this shelf. Before Dr. Ben, I don't know how far y'all go back, but Dr. Ben was one of our leaders. So I'm not going to talk modern leaders. I'm going to talk even going back to Dr. Ben, that was it for a while. That was great information. Peace and blessings be upon him. But even before this new age stuff started coming along, Dr. Ben was dropping it. But this goes back way before all of that. This predates slavery. So when we talk customary law or common law, we're going back to the thousands of years of not lessons or histories, but actions, behavior, language, conduct, character, names, etc. That's why this is so important, and that's your law first. And you have to know that first to know how this other stuff tie in. And when we use this as our reference point, what we're saying that this is where I came in at. This is my entry point here. You're saying this is the beginning or the foundation of my argument. Once you do that, you're going to throw the flag out the window. You're saying that came before the flag, or anything that the flag is based off. You understand what I'm saying? The flag, and when I say the flag, I'm not just talking about the cloth, but the nation that it represents, the people, right? Was overthrown in 1774, according to record, right? So once that flag was lowered, politically, that means that that's no longer acknowledged, no longer has authority, no longer has the jurisdiction. So that's what the lowering the flag, or when I say lowering, also refer to the chopping down of that flag by Boy George. What that represents, that the Moors have no more jurisdiction right now. That's what that politically means. That's not religion. It is, but it's not. You understand? So my point I'm trying to make is, once that flag came down, that means that they're not acknowledging what came before that anymore. So now that was replaced with other stuff that they interjected into the mix and said that this is the foundation now, starting from George Washington on. The what they call the founding fathers, the flag, the standards, everything that it was associated in that era of time, they said was the new law, or what they call a new deal. The old deal is gone, this is the new deal. So now if Moore, which is based off the old deal or the old body or the Old Testament, if he wants to come along now and argue a claim, but he's starting off from the new deal, that means that he still don't know his roots. That means that he's coming in still with clip sovereignty. He can't have no sovereignty without bringing the old first. That's what clip sovereignty also represents. Because sovereignty is not just in what we refer to as the United States of America Republic that was formed in 17 whatever. That's not what sovereignty is rooted in. So even the sovereignty of the United States of America is rooted in this, the old deal. There can be no sovereignty of the United States of America without the acknowledgement of the Moorish Empire first. They recognize the sovereignty of the New Deal. The old deal recognized the New Deal. We could, right or wrong, we could disagree on why they did it, but the point is it was done. So we're not going to dwell off of whether they should have did it or not, but it was done. So we deal with the facts. But my point to us is we can't introduce our claim into the record without showing our old connection to this. And that's what it means by proclaiming your free national name and religion. That connection together is bringing the old in and making the new connection. It says it right in here. Why are we Moorish Americans? Easy question, but it's deep. Because we are descendants. That ties in the old. That means that because we came down from the Moroccans, we ourselves, modern day, was born on this soil. So because of that connection, we are entitled to the modern day sovereignty and the old sovereignty.
Absolutely.
I'm just using that term, sovereignty. But we are entitled to the divine rights, which is this just mentioned, divine warning now. We're entitled to the divine rights now unmolested because of the old deal. The old deal stipulates that the new deal has to recognize the old deal. And it says that in the new deal. When I say the new deal, I'm changing up on what I mean by new deal. New deal means several different things. But when what I just meant by that, the last statement of the new deal, says something? Constitution. It's the new deal.
It's a new deal.
And Article 6 in that new deal, i.e., that Constitution that Drew Ali referred to as the Free National Constitution, Article 6 of that Free National Constitution mentions that the old deal and the new deal has to go together. So we have to know that, because that's your argument. Where they say, well, we don't recognize this religion stuff, or we don't recognize Moorish, then you have to show them the old deal and the new deal together that form the new deal. And then you're saying, well, if you don't acknowledge the old deal, then you can't acknowledge the new deal. That means that your seat now is abandoned, because your seat can't exist without the old deal. So again, what law are you coming from now? Oh, if we talk in commerce and contract, then that explains it. But now we need to switch up into contract law. And now the argument is, do I have a contract with you? Did I breach a contract? We could talk that language, because that is a language. And if we in that type of jurisdiction, then that's the language that we talk. Don't matter, your nationality per se, if you're dealing with breach of contract. It does, but it really don't. Because you have a right to contract and you have a right to not to contract. But if you did contract, then they have every right to redress that contract. The question just becomes, what court is the proper court for that argument? But they do have a right to redress a grievance if there is a breach. And they're claiming that there is a breach. That's what that's all about. So I'm not trying to get into that right now, but I'm just showing you, I'm really showing you how to tie in the old lessons, the old time religion, and whatever you want to call it. I'm showing you why this is paramount in our nationality, in our law, in our citizenship. There can be no citizenship without being able to explain the two. That's why Drew said being born here does not make you a citizen. So forget that just soil stuff. All right, that's not necessarily the law. So just because your parents were born here does not make you a citizen. What it does is it construes you to be a 14th Amendment citizen, is what that does under just soil. When it says a person born, all persons are born here, subject to the jurisdictions thereof. So born here, if you want to run from the just soil, when you say I was born here, that comes under 14th Amendment. So you never say I'm a citizen because I was born here, or I'm a citizen because my parents were born here. That's 14th Amendment language. We're not citizens because of that. You're not a citizen until you proclaim your descent and your modern day allegiance, i.e. your free national name and religion. That's the only thing that makes you a de jure citizen, the term de jure. It's not.
And not just because of the language you use, or the language will put you into the jurisdiction thereof, but because that's the first process applied to you. So as soon as you're born, that's the first jurisdiction that you're put into right away. It's automatic. It's not even time to dispute. It's the automatic acquiescence that you're automatically into that 14th Amendment jurisdiction processes, and everything. When you're born, that's what it is. The first thing, sign this paper, birth certificate, before you even leave. So with even out the language, that's the first process is applied to you.
Islam.
It's applied.
Islam. And when you say born here, or any person's born or naturalized, which is sort of like bringing you into the same jurisdiction. You're not falling apart.
Maybe interpret it.
Just let it hang. Just let it hang. Because I felt something falling down. I'm like, what's going on with my
It's that slick cloth you got.
real slick, so you can't be
You need a
moving
coarse,
around
a
too
coarser garb. So it can,
Coarser garb.
yeah, coarser garb.
I don't even know where it started at. What's going
It's
on?
not.
I would like to also, in retrospect, this is why the prophet said, return back to the state of your ancient forefathers, divine creed and teachings. You know what I'm saying? To this way, so you're a part and parcel of this said government.
Yeah.
But not only that, you are the only de jure citizen because you are the citizens of your ancient forefathers. This is your ancient forefathers' land through birthright and heritage. So it separates all of that. So that shut down that 14th or 15th like amendment right there on the spot. I am a descendant of this land, and they can't prove otherwise.
True. It's not.
Unfortunately, you have to declare and proclaim that.
It's not
Because you know that by yourself is not giving you those rights.
No, that's
Indeed.
not.
No, I'm supporting you. I'm supporting
It's
you.
not. And if you think about it like this, like he said, it's an amendment.
Yeah.
If an amendment made you a citizen, I don't care what the amendment is. I don't even care if it was lawfully amendment or not. But if you are only a citizen because of an amendment, then you're in bad shape. That means that you was not a part of the original plan.
Right, and that could change.
So even if it was the Second Amendment, it still is it still shows clip sovereignty.
That's right.
Because an amendment was not a part of the original format.
No.
So if it took an amendment for you to be made a citizen, that means that your forefathers was not a part of that deal.
It becomes a hadith.
Right.
Islam.
Because that is not birthright by inheritance.
True. It has nothing to do with inheritance.
It's by application.
Islam universal.
I wanted to add on to what you were saying, dealing on the whole deal, and also the principles dealing on
Fly.
Dealing on the principles. The principles is life. In chapter 39, section 11, it says, "How about have a good life, then have a good death than an evil life."
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not dealing with those principles, and the state of mind that Noble Drew got us out of a dead state, you was living a dead life. So if you're not living the principles accordingly, then a good death is eating healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You could live to 190. That's a good death.
Mm-hmm.
So living an evil life you're not dealing on the principles of the old deal.
Mm-hmm.
You're going according to the new deal.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't find yourself. Islam.
I'm with you. Islam. So we're going to go a little bit further into this divine warning. There is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moors divine and national movement, which is incorporated in this government and recognized by all other nations of the world.
Wow.
So that means, remember, because some people always looking for stuff like that. The prophet have a trust. Where can I find that? Where can I find the incorporation papers of the Moors divine and national movement? And when you get into these type of questions, that still shows the insufficiency of knowledge.
That's right.
Because back to my original demonstration, if you acknowledge that Noble Drew Ali was a true and divine prophet, then you recognize what he's saying to you is direct orders from God. direct mandate from God. So that means God ordered the Moorish Divine and National Movement. That means God ordered the Moorish Science Temple of America. That means God ordered the divine constitution and bylaws.
That's right.
God ordered Noble Drew Ali to be the leader. God ordered certain things. Through different peoples and entities is how he did it.
That's right.
So you got to understand that. So if Drew Ali is saying that the Moorish Divine and National Movement was incorporated into this government, and the name is the Moorish Divine, that means God ordered this national movement. If that was incorporated to it, how can you challenge that? Don't mean that you don't investigate it, but how can you say that that's not a fact if you believe in who Noble Drew Ali is? You understand what I'm saying? Even governmental officials can't declaim that, meaning that they can't prove that that's not a fact. For them to say no, that's not true, means that they are violating a direct mandate from God, or order of mandamus is what that means. So we do order of mandamus or writ of mandamus physically to communicate with physical beings, but also God did a writ of mandamus as well, and he did it through his prophets. So by discrediting something that a true prophet says or does is ignoring or acquiescing to an order of God.
That's right.
It's a violation of an order of God. That's not just violating a court order. You understand what I'm saying? That's not just violating a constitution. And we have to look at that, because even when we arguing and claiming and disclaiming certain things, we got to understand what the violations are. So we'll say, oh, you violated your oath of office because you dishonor what I'm saying, or you violated the Constitution. But is that all? Is that the only thing they're doing? They're violating God's order. So there's laws for that too. There's claims for that too. There's articles that cross-reference into that type of argument as well. So you can't be too lenient, and you can't misquote what your allegations are, because you let them off the hook by just saying you're violating the Constitution. And they already know that you are. They know you don't know if that's the only way you coming from. If that's where you coming from, you leave the religion out of it. You're letting them off the hook. Is my point. So we can't erase and separate nationality from religion. You cannot do that. You're doing a disservice to yourself and your forefathers. Let us go further. And through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights, unmolested by other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under the free national constitution of the state's government, and not under a granted privilege, as has been the existing condition for many generations. And here's back to my point. You who doubt whether I, not saying me, but you who doubt whether the prophet Noble Drew Ali and my principles are right for the redemption. Redemption means to redeem, right? His people. Go to those that know law in the city hall and among the officials in your government, and ask them under an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply, for they are glad to see me bring you out of darkness into the light. Money doesn't make the man. It is free national standards and power that makes a man and a nation. The wealth of all national governments, talking about the wealth of the nation's government, gold and the silver, just to name a few, and commerce. And this, I want to highlight that. We know gold and silver. We talk gold and silver, but we don't talk commerce enough. So he says here, the wealth of all national governments, the gold and silver as being one, and as a conjunction. So gold and silver in the same category. Then there's a comma, and then it says commerce. Commerce we leave out of the equation. Not saying all of us, but just we don't talk enough about it is what I mean. He's saying the commerce itself belongs to the citizens and the citizens alone. And without your national citizenship by name and principles. What? Say it again.
You have no true
Say it louder.
You have no true wealth.
You have no true wealth. True wealth. Not going to say you don't have no wealth. You don't have true wealth. Because material things does not reflect true wealth. Islam. So I just want to highlight commerce because commerce is important. And I always teach that we have to do commerce. We have to live within the contracts. Contracts make law. All laws contracts. So we're dealing with commerce. We're supposed to deal with commerce. And because that was something that was kept out of our nation, our heritage for so long through the enslavement, that we don't really deal with commerce the way we're supposed to, it's not a part of our language no more. Commerce is not a part of our language, just like gold and silver is not really part of our language. But back to how Universal broke it down earlier, language just don't mean how you speak or your tongue, the national language, but just your conversations alone is also language. So again, when we talk to each other and communicate to each other and teach each other, we're not talking gold, silver, and commerce. Just collectively, right? So we're not talking true wealth. We're not conversating about true wealth. You understand where I'm going with it? Now, yes, we can build upon many different sciences, literatures, and realities. Not to discredit anything. But if we're talking nationhood or nationalism or uplifting a nation, then we have to at some point conversate about gold, silver, and commerce. Nations talk commerce more than they talk gold and silver. Now this again, that's not what today's lesson is all about. But while I'm on it, I want to address it and I want to come back to it at another time. But I'm putting it as a highlight that once you arrive at the knowledge of truth and the knowledge of self, once you get past trying to find out who you are, then your next lessons become commerce. You can't spend your whole tarry here, your whole life, studying more science and studying about who you are, because then you'll never get to commerce and you'll never have true wealth. And if you don't have true wealth, you can't pass it on. So you have nothing to pass on to your children. So again, this is Drew Ali's high lessons. It's basic, it's elementary, but it's still high lessons. Because you go to any other nation around the world and go to their high meetings or whatever meetings that they have. I'm going to get to you in 1 second, sis. You go around and start hearing what other nations talking about. Go sit in on a Chinese meeting. They're not going to be sitting around talking about Chinese descent and one-on-one questions and answers. They're going to be talking commerce. Because they lead the world in manufacturing. So they're past that. They're past nationality and birthright. They're exercising it. They're selling it. You understand? They're selling who they are. They duplicate, they manufacture goods, and they sell them to everybody else. And they're able to pass that down to their children. The name Chinese or Japanese is on everything that we use. That's nationality and birthright. Not what we talking about. I'm not discrediting us. What I'm saying is only a crutch. This was only given to us for a short period of time to raise us up to deal with what other nations deal with. Other nations are not going to take us seriously if we still sitting around talking about what chapter 1 says, or what chapter 29 says, and what chapter 47 said. It's good information, but we can't keep talking about that without implementing what chapter 47 says. And that's just another lesson for another time period. Islam, sis, you got the floor.
What I was going to mention is in regards to you mentioning de jure earlier versus de facto. And when you speak of commerce and wealth, which is gold and silver measured in trading versus fiat money, and Sheikh Nika also mentioned the declaration, not keeping it to self, but declaring that which you know of thyself.
Yes.
The same goes with your bank, and this is from personal experience. When the de facto think that they have jurisdiction over your finances, they have the right in their eyes to go into your bank account and take that which does not belong to them. But if you are endorsing fiat, which is the Federal Reserve, and you have not declared Title 12 U.S.A. subsection 411, which is redemption of lawful money, then they can go into your bank account until you do that. Then you're observing and declaring that you only endorse the de jure, which is gold and silver, not fiat, in terms of commerce and leaving wealth for your family. So making sure that you're protecting.
That's what I was going to say. Thank you. So again, thank you for that. And you're right. We have to not just exercise commerce, talk about it, but we have to learn the laws to protect it as well. And even with that, again, back to my earlier lesson, we can't even mention that without going back to the old body and showing the old connection into what, what endorses that. You know what I mean? Because when you're dealing with banking, you're still dealing with international entities. So like Drew Ali said earlier in the paragraph, that we got to proclaim our free national name and religion in the government in which we live, that's local, and the nations of the earth. So now we're talking about being acknowledged on an international scale, because again, when you're dealing with bankers, you're dealing with international entities. So your acknowledgement and declaration also has to be made internationally in order to even have international protection. Because and we know this, especially most of the de facto laws here are internationally invoked. So they're borrowed, I don't want to call them laws, but they're borrowed codes that really comes from cross seas. So most of these law books that we call law books are actually internationally written. And their roots and the true jurisdiction behind them actually lies in another land. So we can argue it here, but there's layers of jurisdiction also that's still rooted in other areas that we need to consider. And when you read contracts, they might tell you, and they usually tell you, that they reserve the right, if there's any dispute, to have this heard in a court of their own preference. That's a contract law. And they put that there just because if you're in New Jersey and they're in California or wherever, and they're saying if there's any dispute that arises between this, if there's any breach of contract, I'm going to bring you to court out here in California. Even though you in Jersey, I'm not coming to New Jersey to argue this. You got to come to California. I'm just giving you an example of why that's written like that. And there's layers that's not written as well that indicates foreign jurisdiction and corporate jurisdiction, de facto jurisdictions. There's a lot to go with it. So we gotta, again, we don't want to fall into any of the traps by just agreeing to what they reserve their rights to. You have to reserve your rights. If the person you contracting with is reserving their rights, then why are you not reserving yours? Which means if they reserving their rights in that contract that you sign, but you don't reserve yours, then by default it goes to whatever they put in the contract. And that's why, that's one of the major reasons they don't want us dealing with these codes, because they want the upper hand on the contract, because it's all contract. They reserve the right already, so now you saying you reserve the right. I think Nawiel said that a couple weeks ago that they said, oh, you can't do that on this document. Oh, you can't reserve your right on it. Well, as an argument, you can go into the contract and say, well, you reserve yours. It might not have been on your signature, but in the language of your document, you said, we or I reserve the right to do this. So how come you can reserve a right to something, but I can't?
That's an unconscionable contract.
Absolutely. It's unconscionable from the door. It's illegal. The adhesion is everything. It's a lot. But meaning that if we don't know, then the joke's on us. That's just how it goes. You can't blame them and fault them. You're being told. Like Drew said, that you've been told. So if you go sign something and it come back and bite you later, you can't say you didn't know because you've been told. If you're in a Moorish Science Temple, a good Moorish Science Temple, you should have been told. Even if you're not in the Moorish Science Temple, you've been told. Because if you read Drew's lessons correctly, it should bring you to this information. So a lot of people say, well, Drew ain't talk law. He did talk law. You just didn't read it. You've been hypnotized with other stuff, and that's why you don't know he taught law. Because you listening to other people that's telling you that Drew didn't talk law.
Those who did.
Absolutely.
For those who didn't do it.
Absolutely. Islam's fine. Go.
First I rise and I give all praises to Allah, Father in the universe. Honest and noble Ali, honest and Marcus Josiah Garvey, honest to the Grand Sheikh, honest to Sheikh Nika, honest to all the sheiks, and honest to everyone here pertaining to Islam. Islam. If you have a question in the chat, no more.
All right, Islam. Yes, sir.
Okay, it's two now. The first one was from the brother named is Live Lofi.
You don't have to mention the names for private reasons.
Is there a difference between begotten and born? I don't know what part of the lesson that was, but that's what he asked. And the last one he just asked was, so how do you properly sign a contract? Which we just answered, but
Last week's video.
Islam, we did touch that on last week's session, but I just briefly go into it. Your reservation of rights through what they call the Uniform Commercial Code, which is short UCC, is called UCC-103, and yeah, points. You don't have to put the 0.6, but that is accurate. Yes, in 207 is the two codes that you want to commonly use for most contracts. There are other specific contracts that you might have. There's hundreds of UCC codes, and all depending on the specific counter or contract that you're dealing with, there are codes for each specific type of situation. So you can put a specific UCC code for a specific situation that you're dealing with. But when you're just dealing with general reservation, where you're not sure what the counter is, but you just want to protect yourself just in case, that's where 103 and 207 comes in at. And because we're electronically signing most contracts these days, especially in the time of COVID, everything is done on a computer. So it's hard to write this down nowadays. Before, you can entwine it in your signature. Now they're forcing you to type it into the keyboard on a computer. So it gets a little challenging now. So you can just do one or the other. I would prefer 1-103. And if you can't do that, you put A.R.R, which just means all rights reserved. Now, all rights reserved is less characters. When you're typing in a box on a computer, you might call it a letter, even a number, but in computer language is considered a character. And they only allow a certain amount of characters per box. So if you have long names, sometimes it becomes difficult. You can't even enter all the characters of your appellation. So that's why I was telling Moors and new Moors to try to shorten and choose short appellations, because this is going to be the new way of doing business. Right? Everything is going to be done online. So again, you can go back into last week's video to get more information on that. And we've touched on that for years. So I mean, there's should be a lot of that on the YouTube under our name, Islam. Now, Islam, brother, is it pertaining to that question or something else?
Yes, Islam. I want to camel back on to what you just mentioned in regards to how things are going electronically. I've also had an experience last week when I was applying for some credit at a particular store. The salesperson put the information in, but when they contacted the bank asked to speak to me. So they're not only that the characters are getting shorted in the box electronically, what they're trying to do too is when they spoke to me, they recorded the call. So I had to say my name, address, all that information, such, but it was on a recorded line. So that's something else that they're implementing as well.
So you can reserve your rights in your opening statement.
Yeah. Right. Because actually, when they said
now it's like in court when you say let the record reflect, there's an opportunity to put it on.
The guy was like, "You want a recorded call? Can can you give me your name and such and such?" And I was like, "Well, why is it recorded?" He said, "Well, this is how we do things." I said, "I really don't approve of it being recorded, but at this moment in time, my name is such and such and such." That's how I proceeded at that moment in time.
What you can do is hit your phone, press record, and kind of he's also being recorded on a recorded line. Right. So
yes. Islam, we on lines. Can y'all just speak up a little bit so that they can understand? Just if you stand up, the voice will carry a little bit better.
All right.
Thank you.
So usually, like when you have documents and you sign them, you get like a copy of them. Yeah. But so to record the conversation, you can say I'm also recording you on a recorded line. You can have your own digital recordings of conversations and keep a file and keep them, because sometimes when you want to retrieve a recording, you gotta go through all the loopholes and they may say they don't have it and where's your proof that you said this. So instead of having to go through all that rigmarole, right, you just have your own file. Each corporation you spoke to have your own file of recordings, and then you have your proof also. Since it's going in that direction.
Islam, thank you for this. Islam, so the other question we wanted that was asked was the difference between begotten and born. So I'm gonna just read the two definitions, then I explain it. As a from a this is just a general Webster definition. Begotten. Something is begotten when it's been generated by procreation. In other words, it's been fathered. A somewhat old-fashioned adjective, begotten, is the past participle.
Yeah, participle.
Participle, thank you, of the verb beget, which means to father or produce as an offspring. So, say it again.
You said that's begotten.
That's the term begotten, to beget. So when we're dealing with that, it's dealing with more as to father or to produce an offspring. And all depending on how it's used in a sentence, and also they don't really use the term begotten in the modern day language, in modern day society. So you're not going to really see that. Not saying you can't use it, because it does go back to a earlier time period. So we have that that is part of our language, our common language, our common law language. It's an earlier language, is in our Quran as well. When you're dealing with the term born just means to be manifested, which it could, all depending on the sentence and who's using it, it could mean the same thing, but it does not necessarily have to mean the same thing. So it all depends on who's using it and what they're using it to indicate. So like I said earlier, all persons born or naturalized in the United States is subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Born is not necessarily in that sentence meaning fathered. It doesn't hold the same definition as begotten in the 14th Amendment. Being born in or naturalized according to the 14th Amendment indicates being created by law. That's an artificial birth, what we call created by law. And that's what born will mean most of the time in this era of time that we're dealing with, because we're dealing with the bureaucratized slavery and the political slavery. When you see born most of the time on your on documents, applications, and all of that good stuff, addresses, born, all that terminology is all relating to artificial birth of being 14th Amendment citizen. So born in most cases nowadays would mean created by law. So you're not really going to see an application that says, where was you begotten, or begotten as a classification, because they don't use terminology that will expose them or will put you in a more natural position to defend what they're trying to do. So you should automatically assume anything that they're dealing. The language itself is corrupt. And even the words nowadays means different from what they used to mean. So you should never assume that it means de jure, natural, or to your benefit. You should always look it up or redefine it. And again, that's one of the reasons why you reserve your rights on stuff, because you don't know where they're going with it. And just in case they come back later to try to say, well, you signed this and it says here, you were born here. And, if they try to argue that, which they're not, because they never want to expose those things. But just in case they want to try to pull a jurisdictional thing over you, those are things that you can bring up and challenge. That, listen, I reserve this right so that I can argue this later. And I don't know if there's a misunderstanding or something, but you must think that I'm an artificial person created by law. And it seems like this document indicates this several times here, and I can show you point by point what I'm referring to. And that's how you have to counterclaim documentation is given to you. You have to go point by point. What we call a bill of particulars.
That's right.
When we counterclaim documents, court documents, claims, We do it in a manner or a process called the Bill of Particulars. So the Bill of Particulars is more like a questionnaire that we give to the court, the prosecutor, whoever's challenging us, the creditor, and we go point by point and say, well, listen, this bill you sent me is demanding money. Can you define money? Can you define what you're asking me for? Are you asking me for Federal Reserve notes? Are you asking me for gold? I don't understand. Can you just tell me, can you explain to me, because I have a right to know. So can you explain to me, what do you mean by I owe you money? And can you show me the contract where I agreed to owe you this money? In this document, it says that I'm a black male. Can you please define who and what is a black male? And what nation is that? What land is that? I.e., what nationality is that? Because I'm not black. You understand? So that's what a Bill of Particulars is. It's a questionnaire sent to the creditor or whoever's claiming an allegation on you. That you don't answer a complaint with an answer. You answer a complaint with a question or with questions. And that's how most people in law do it. That's what they do. If you try to argue or bring them to court for something, that's what they do. They don't call it a Bill of Particulars, but there's other terms that they use for it. Islam. In the older days, Bill of Particulars is a federal process, just so you'll know. You don't really find that in state court or municipal too much. It's mainly used in a federal procedure. But an older terminology for Bill of Particular, it was referred to as an order to show cause. So those who are studious, you go back into early Moorish Science Temple era time, like Prophet Noble Drew Ali days and times, they were in and out of court all the time. And there's legal documents in order to show causes that were generated by the Moors and by the Moorish Science Temple. So it was popular to Moors in the early 1920s. But again, you listen to people who tell you that they didn't deal with law, and it's because they're trying to distract you.
That's right.
The Prophet himself told the Moors, if you love me, you'll go to court with me.
That's right.
So that proves that he was going to court. Islam. Thank you. So I'm going to get back into, I hope that answered some of the questions that was out there. I'm going to go back into the divine warning. And I just want to quickly show that the prophets, we use what we call references and case law. And what I want to encourage Moors to do is use your literature more as a reference to law and case law. So if you look up the term common law in a modern day dictionary, they'll tell you that common law is court decisions that were made in the chanceries of England. Court decisions and rulings and decrees that were ruled upon in the English court of law. That's what they define as common law. But common law is not just what was ruled in England. Common law predates England as well. I'm saying that to say that when they used common law, they were going back to their forefathers' court decisions, decrees, rulings, and how things was argued in law prior to them. So when the Englishman or European man say common law, he's predating that to his forefathers' state of mind. Like Shatik's mentioned earlier. So when a Moor say common law, he needs to be going back to his forefathers' state of mind.
That's right.
And that becomes your common law. So when we say common law, we don't go back to the English man's state of mind or the European man's state of mind. We go back to our forefathers' state of mind. So that means you want to find Islamic, Muslim rulings, cases with Moors, cases with other Muslims, cases, just give you an example. Moors use the Sundry Free Moors case. Everybody familiar with that?
Yeah.
All right, so we use the Sundry Free Moors case as a reference to how courts dealt with Moors. Simple, right? So it's called Sundry Free Moors because the individuals were Moors. They were claiming Moors, but also they was claiming free Moors. So the courts dealt with them a certain way because of the terminology, and they invoked the court to acknowledge them as free Moors, and they said that they didn't want to be tried under the Negro Act.
That's right. That's right.
And again, that's kind of like what I'm saying, that they drew back to their forefathers' state of mind in South Carolina, which is modern day court system here. This was in the 1700s, but still meaning that it's still modern day. Meaning that they went back to their forefathers' national standards, divine creed, and invoked that into this modern day court system because they understood the science behind that and the obligation that the modern day people had to the old body that I was speaking about. So that's kind of like the example that I'm saying that Moors this day have to do. That we have to, our case law, our references, the law of law have to be more from our traditional and cultural and religious background. That's right. Not from what they created. Because if we saying born here and born is in person is created by law, and we're staying away from that because we're saying it was created by law, which means created by them. It's the same thing as we keep going back to the laws that they created. So we can argue their law, like we say with the Constitution, Article 4 says this, Article 6 says this, and that's our foundation and our only foundation. Then what we're still saying is our foundation is created by law. So we're saying the same thing. So you're still saying you're artificial without saying you're artificial. Like we might reject to the person, the Negro, black, and colored and all that, but then we'll come and start arguing that law and that law only, which we're still telling the court we're still 14th Amendment citizens then. Because they created our mindset. When we talk law, we need to be going back prior to that, not starting off with that. If we mention that, we mention it as, including but not limited to, as additional references to law, but not the only law. Everybody understand that? They place their trust upon names and issues formed by their forefathers. So when they say law, because when you're saying law, right? You're talking government and you're talking people, you're talking land, which all represents a trust. This is trust law. So they place their trust upon names and issues formed by their government, i.e., they place their laws upon names and issues formed by their forefathers.
That's right.
They place their government upon names and issues formed by their forefathers. So Moors have to do the same thing.
That's right. Right.
So your laws, your trust, your government, your issues all should be relative to your forefathers.
Your forefathers. That's right.
Right.
Named.
You understand what I'm saying? when you don't do that, you're letting them know that you're still half-stepping.
That's right. That you don't know.
Those that know law, right? When you go in front of those that know law and you come any other way, that's how they view you. That you still don't know.
Because you don't know.
They might admire your approach.
Yes.
That you're not just coming from a strictly Negro, black, and colored mindset.
But you still. Yeah.
But they know that you still have not arrived at the knowledge of truth.
Nope.
And will still take advantage of the fact that you have the insufficiency of knowledge.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
And they will take advantage of that. They might help you a little bit still, because like Drew said, they're glad to see me bring you out of darkness into the light, but they see you with a turban and fez on. You're supposed to be talking to old-time religion. And that's where the true respect and honor really will come from. Islam. We were took a stroll through the flea market yesterday, and on two different occasions, the children had their fezzes on, and two different people, two different occasions, because the sisters was walking, and the children was some children was with the sisters, and someone questioned them, and the brothers was hanging out in the back. And we was talking to another Muslim that acknowledged the fez and questioned the children on their fez. But pretty much the same conversation. The children had their fezzes on, and the individuals came right out and not tested them as if like he was trying to like belittle them, but pretty much letting them know that he acknowledges and knows what it was, and was just hoping that they was responsive with that. So again, and this is just dealing with society, but now you go up into some government institution, especially a courtroom, and you got a turban and a fez on.
Right.
You dealing with people who really know.
That's right.
They went to school to know and went to school to manipulate what they know.
Mm-hmm.
So you walk in there with them, they're not just having a general conversation with you. They're not joking. They're not trying to help you. That's not their position. So you walk in there and don't know what you're talking about, they gonna rip you.
Thanks.
That's their goal, and that was the reason why they lowered the flag. Them lowering the flag was to lower your consciousness and reduce your power and ability to defend yourself politically.
Absolutely.
So they already know that.
Absolutely.
We're not the only ones that know that George chopped down the cherry tree. We're not the only ones that know that story. You think they know them better than we do?
That's right.
That's part of their education.
Absolutely.
Their degrees.
Absolutely.
They have to know that.
Yep. They can't pass within the bar if you don't.
It's not. Yes, ma'am.
Can I say, for my beautiful people in this room, they chopped down the cherry tree, but they didn't uproot. And by your fruit, we shall know your root.
Absolutely.
We still speaking the fruit from the mouth, so the root is still within us.
Islam. Islam.
Grows back, right?
Islam. And we all are seeds of those same roots. Like the Quran says, a seed that holds within itself the potency. So we are roots of that tree. We're seeds of that tree. And again, and that's why Drew told us again that he brought us something that we can't tear up. This is beyond us tearing it up. We can make it dirty, but we can't tear it up. This is everlasting. Islam. Islam. So I'm going to continue. Islam. And I am hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free government and the enforcement of the Constitution to help me in my great missionary work, because I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. But what makes a person think that he's not talking law? Like how can you, like, what are you reading? Like, what does that mean? He says, help me save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of government. He says it again and again and again. But what makes you think he's not talking about law?
Those that don't know how to read his lessons.
I am depending on your support to get them back into the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate. And I will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our free national constitution of the United States of America.
There it is again.
But see, this back and again, I'm gonna keep mentioning Universal's name because he brought out that concept of the language. This is Moorish American language. You know, we talk Quran, that's one language, but because we're modern day born here on this side, and we got to speak another language as well, like being bilingual, so to speak, we got to talk this language too.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's got to be part of your language. You got to know when to talk this language, when to talk the other language. You got to be versatile when we're dealing with this science. Got to be fully equipped Moorish American. We're doing a job here. You know, we are at odds, so we got to be able to show the fortified principles to defend ourselves from this plot. Islam. I love my people, and I desire their unity in mind back to their own free national divine standard. I'm going to repeat that. I love my people and I desire their unity and mind back to their own free national and divine standards. Because day by day they have been violating the national and constitutional laws of their government by claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. That's heavy. I know we read this all the time, but I know for me, the more and more I read it, the heavier it gets. And the more real it gets. Like it says, man unfold as God unfold. The more you read this, the more it should resonate to you. It's like it's like chanting, and like even in the other language we talk about the zikrs and things like that. We can create that within this language.
Yes, the same thing. Yes, absolutely.
The more you read it, the more you say that, the more it becomes part of your mental.
That's right.
And the more you invoke that.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Again, so we got to do both. We got to balance the equation here.
Absolutely.
We got to balance the hemispheres.
Absolutely.
So this helps polarize self.
Absolutely.
By knowing your divine creed and knowing your modern day creed.
That's right.
If you study both of them correctly, what it does is polarize you, or what we call ground you.
Yep.
So we're trying to ground ourselves.
That's
Islam?
right.
Fix.
Right.
Exactly. Fix or secure.
Same.
Or to moor ourselves. Because moor also means to secure or to fix oneself. So you moor vessel, but your vessel is your body. So again, we hold fast. We fix ourselves on the simplicities of her charms.
These truths and be self-resident.
Like the prophet said, he's going to mend the broken wires.
Islam, that's mooring. That's mooring. So we're referred to as Moors. We declare ourselves as Moors, but acknowledge what it means we're doing. Islam, chapter 5.
More is a verb also.
Absolutely. Islam. Islam.
Beautiful.
If the Italians, the Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that that law should be enforced on all other American citizens alike. That's why he said being born here does not make you a citizen. So the law applies to everybody. And because you were born here, it doesn't exempt you from this constitutional mandate. Islam.
About the birth thing and the born and the begotten.
Mm-hmm.
If you notice the documents, because I've seen some like documents from other countries, they always say like birthplace.
Mm-hmm.
But I notice here they go place of birth.
Mm-hmm.
Place of birth, that's just like when a ship births, and they document that when it docks.
Mm-hmm.
They can place you being birthed anywhere.
Correct. They plate that they're saying they placed you here.
Right.
Like they saying they brought us here.
Right.
You were docked here.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's why you said you gotta know how to use the language to
Right.
decode it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's how you gotta look at stuff.
Right.
You know?
That's right.
Because you gotta look at the language as being trickery.
Oh,
Right. Yeah, it's sorcery.
Exactly.
That's
Sorcery.
right.
Exactly.
Spell.
Islam, fine.
Islam, Grand Sheep. Real birth. The real spelling of birth is B-E-R-T-H.
Mm-hmm. That's
That means the same thing as born.
Islam. Islam. Good. Islam. You're just absorbing the information over here, man. You didn't sleep. Islam.
He's good.
Said he wanted to sit in the east.
About to lay in the east.
Mm-hmm. Islam. So in all other governments, when a man is born and raised there and asks for his national descent name and he fails to give it, he is misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and principles, because to be a citizen of any government, you must claim your national descent name. Because they place their trust upon issues and names formed by their forefathers. The word Negro alludes in the Latin language to the word nigger. The same as the word color alludes to anything that is painted, stained, varnished, or dyed. And every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers, because honoring thy fathers and thy mothers, your days will be lengthened upon the earth. These names have never been recognized by any true American citizens of this day. Through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by said national government in which they live.
That's right.
And pay attention to this. The 14th and the 15th Amendments brought the North and the South in unit. And what does that do? What does that do? What did that do? Islam.
What did that do? It brought it now for this.
No, according, what's the next?
Oh.
Meaning, remember, this is a language. This is a record.
So it brought it actually united them.
Yes, but what's the next paragraph? Like, we should know this by heart.
It brought the
Because
South
they
back
were
into
without-
constitutional form of government because it was without
Constitutional power.
Yes, but the concept is the North and South came into unit,
That's right.
placing the Southerners, who were at that time without constitutional body of power, with constitutional body of power. And he said, and at that time, which was what year? 1865. What's the record? It's like a record, right? We can turn on the radio and we can sing along with that record. If I'm reading this, we should be able to do the same thing.
The free national constitutional was enforced since 1774 that declared all men free and equal. Since that Constitution has
never been changed. There's no need for what?
For the 14th
The application. Don't miss that. It's important.
14th and 15th Amendment.
For what?
For
Salvation.
And the
citizens. So what's the next? Keep the song going. So there's only but one supreme issue for my people, that which was lost, and it does what? And then what? And neither will be harmed.
Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
In those days, greatest civilized governments of the world. But if those principles are not carried out by who? And who? Worse is yet to come. And how deep is that? But you see, when we verbalize it, you hear the tone? Only thing we was missing was the beat. But again, that's what's going to uplift us. You understand? We need to be chanting that.
You know what you just made me think about? Our divine constitution and bylaws, that we pledge allegiance to our divine constitution and bylaws. That's our true allegiance. To
pledge of allegiance, absolutely.
Yes.
Islam. But that vision is exactly correct. This is why Drew Ali is standing in the middle in fidelity, because he's affirming to those standards. And that is a pledge of allegiance.
And they said they pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Correct.
To the republic for which it stands. So they know that we are pledging allegiance to the republic. What it stands for.
It's a code. That's why Drew Ali did that. It was a code for us to get back into the constitutional fold of government.
And Grand Chief.
That's why he said they're glad to see me bring you out of darkness into the light. So when you stand and imitate the prophet, they know exactly what you're doing. They know the code. The hard part and the dilemma, the foe, is for us to live according to it.
That's right.
We can imitate them. That's the foe. We can imitate the illustration, the stance, the garb. We can illustrate all of that easy. But now the hard part is the character that goes with it.
To be the message which we bring.
And Grand Chief, that's why the prophet said, make no assertions against the American flag, because it holds allegiance to your republic.
Absolutely.
Now, if I may add, I hear a lot of Moors talking about, well, we can't be a part of the United States because it's de facto, this, that, and other. But what are you talking about? Then you're cutting off your allegiance before it starts, because even they understand what that means.
Correct.
So you have to be like a part of it. We already know it's broken. That's why you're here to fix it. That's what the prophet said. I left the European here long enough to teach you how to run a government again.
Islam. So back to what you just said. If Asiatic says that that's not our government,
that's what they say,
and that's not our constitution,
that's what they say.
That's when you hit them with this. Go right back into the divine warning.
Absolutely.
After we just sung that song,
absolutely,
he says, in those days, the United States will be one of the greatest civilized and prosperous governments of the world.
Right.
So when that occurs, if you debase yourself from it, when it does become the greatest civilized and prosperous government of the world, then you're really going to be cast out.
Right.
If you don't get with it now, while it's being repaired and restored, when it really gets to perfected, then you're gonna be cast out. You're gonna be exiled, imprisoned, or you're gonna be that he was just talking about.
That's right.
Then once this government really get to where it's supposed to be, then anyone that's unconstitutional can now be shipped out. because now it won't be tolerated. Now they want it because they capitalize off it.
That's right.
But once it gets restored, it won't be tolerated. And that's really when you'll see the effect of this lesson take place, where you won't be worthy of the citizenship here. There will, when the United States of America gets to where it needs to be and supposed to be, there will be no more Negro, Black, and colored activity. Those names will cease, and anyone that still wants to go by that, they will find themselves in another land. That's the record.
Absolutely.
That's how you got to look at that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So he's given us an opportunity to correct a wrong.
Now, that's right.
And get with it before it's too late. That's what the divine warning is for. That's the message of the divine warning. Take heed to this. Hold on, Omar, you had your hand up?
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna make a statement.
You want to rise, please?
Oh, sure. It'd be like another a recurrence of the being driven out of the Holy Land.
Absolutely.
Cast out. Islam. They be cast out by Drew Ali. And they'd be asking someone else permission to seek a new home somewhere else.
Yep, and that is what is meant by seek ye first the kingdom.
Islam. Now
Yes, not to cause any controversy, but there's a lot of Moors that say this in Morocco. You know, they stand on being Moroccans, our Moroccans. And a lot of them, I've heard even other Moors say, oh, those Moors that claim to be Moroccans is going to get exiled, like you're going to get sent back to Morocco, the quote-unquote redeem. And then the brother Abdullah just opened up the United Respublica of Morocco as a new founding body of government for the Moors. I just want to hear your take. Islam.
Oh, you know my take. I come from the record. I'm going to continue to come from the record. Islam. There's only one supreme issue. Islam.
That's my point.
So it's like the Moorish hordes. You would call it that?
I won't necessarily call it that. I just, it is, man finds himself where he solves his problems best. So I can't speak for other people. Each tongue must confess his own. Islam. But in harmony, what I was just speaking about, I'm going to finish the divine warning. Got to complete that thought.
It is up to the United States will be the greatest civilized and prosperous government of the world.
Yes, but if those principles are not carried out by the citizens and my people in this government, the worst is yet to come. Because the great God of the universe is not pleased with the works that's being performed in North America. In North America, by my people, and this great sin must be removed from the land to save it from enormous earthquakes, COVID, etc.
Diseases, famines, etc.
I put that there, but it says disease.
Right.
That's true prophet right there.
That's right.
Islam.
That's right.
Again, this is so you can understand what's going on now. I sent a couple videos out during the week pertaining to this.
I saw it.
Sister that was. See what I was?
That's
all right, Islam.
I saw it.
All right, Islam. So he said, this great sin must be removed from the land to save it meaning save the land from enormous earthquakes, disease, and etc., which we're experiencing now.
That's right.
And I, the prophet, do hereby believe that this administration of the government, being more wisely prepared by more genius citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws, and through the help of such classes of citizens, I, the prophet, truly believe that my people will find the true and divine way of their forefathers. Right? So he's talking about that, what he set up as the redemption process for us and for the land in 1928 officially. He's not talking about something new that was just set up. All right. I, the prophet, truly believe that my people will find the true and divine way of their forefathers and learn and stop serving cardinal customs, merely ideas of man that have never done them any good, but have always harmed them. So I, the prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine plea to all true American citizens to help me to remove this great sin which has been committed and being practiced by my people in the United States of America, because they know it is not the true and divine way, and without understanding that they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin. And there is not a nation on earth today that will recognize them what? Socially, religiously, politically, economically,
etc.
in their present condition of their endeavorment.
That's right.
In which they themselves try to force upon what?
Civilized world.
They will not refrain from their sinful ways of action, and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. And they fought the Southerners for all these misuses, great misuses. But I have traveled in the South, and I have examined the conditions there, and it is the work of my people continuously practicing the things that would bring about dishonor, disgrace, disrespect to any nation that lives the life. This is one of the reasons why the Drew Ali said, if you got family in the South, you need to get them out of there, because the practices are continuous in the South.
That's right.
And not just by slave masters or plantations or European, our people.
Right.
So you got to understand the science. Our people is contributing to the great sin in the South.
That's right. That's right.
So the South is doomed. He
That's
said
right.
in an oral statement.
That's why they're getting hit with so many storms, back to back.
And I am hereby calling on all true American citizens for moral support and finance to help me in my great missionary work to bring my people out of darkness into the marvelous light. Islam. From the prophet. From the prophet.
But what I realized about the sentence about the South is he's talking like the concentrated areas as far as like the inner cities. Because those cities are always structured in like a southern region of the landmass of the state.
You got to go back into the divine warning. We addressed part of it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But remember, there's karma in the South, even based off prior to 1865.
That's right.
The South had no constitutional body of power.
Exactly.
And that was a very, very intricate part of the United States history.
Speaking about the South, period.
So it was the southern states, not just certain cities in the South. They refused constitutional body of power, and they took Lincoln out because Lincoln united the North and South and enforced constitutional standards of law in the South.
That's
and
right.
Because the South didn't want that, they took Lincoln out.
That's right.
So it's still karma behind what they did to Lincoln. It's a lot of science in that, in what Abraham Lincoln did.
That's right.
And really, they still are, even if you notice the political campaigns, how they depend on the South for a lot of their support and votes.
That's right.
And you notice the political parties get real they get real challenging when they're dealing with the people in the South.
That's right.
But that's a whole, again, another conversation. I really don't want to get into that now, but there's a lot of karma in the South. Not just because of how Moors are treating each other, or how it's just a collective vibration. The vortex, the vibration, the energy in the South itself is of a lower vibration.
That's right.
Even from trends, from information, from consciousness to events. It's a lower vibration. And I'm not saying that to bring them down or point the fingers. It's just been the continuous standard for a very long time.
Right. And it still is up until this day.
So if you even notice, I'm just dealing with just generally the movement of people. It's a slower rhythm in the South. The people themselves move slower. The education is lower on how people process information compared to the North. And again, not saying that to put anyone else on a higher scale. It's just the energy itself, the vibrational energy in the South is just different. So again, that's something you investigate and do the knowledge on why that's like that. I'm not telling you why it's like that. I'm just giving you codes that Noble Drew Ali gave us to indicate why certain things are going to occur in the South first, because of the karmatic relation that they have to stagnating this government from its course of law. He just told us what was going down. And if the above principles is not carried out, what's going to occur? And that was in the South. The South was far from. You'll get more constitutional protections in the North than you will in the South, even right now.
Absolutely.
So again, it's still being practiced in the South. It's being practiced here too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but more in the South still to this day. Yeah. Islam. So Islam was with that. In this session of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, in harmony of our prophet, the proclamations, and the warnings. There were others that we did not mention. But with that, we're going to go straight into a prayer. We're going to pray, close the meeting, and then y'all can continue with the donations and everything. I just want to close Islam, all active Moorish Americans, please rise, standing squarely affirmed with 5 fingers on the left, 2 fingers on the right. Arms at a 90-degree angle. Islam. We're going to recite after Sheikh Isnika.
Islam.
May Allah
Bind our hearts and minds back to our ancient forefathers. Divine creed and principles. This we ask in thy holy name and the 7 Elohim. Amen. Islam. Islam. Islam.
Meeting is now closed, Morris. Yeah, I felt it too. Flying go. Can I get your assistance real quick? I don't know if you put it tight.
Peace and love, Moors. Islamism.